Good evening, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. Will President Karol Nawrocki veto Poland's access to the European Safe Loan for Defence mechanism? We'll have more on that in just a moment, but first let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Europe working to bypass a Hungarian veto over €90 billion loan for Ukraine. German Chancellor on a visit to China as Beijing invests in arms production in Belarus. And the Hungarian opposition leads polls ahead of the parliamentary elections in April.
First, stop the war. War is bad for the business.
Will Poland obtain a €44 billion loan from the European SAFE programme to boost the country's defence capabilities? President Karol Nawrocki voices concern over the bill prepared by the Ministry of Defence. His power to veto leaves the loan hanging. Piotr Miszczuk has the details.
We're not going to protect you if you're not paying the bills.
This is one of the warnings US President Donald Trump issued towards his NATO allies in the EU over what he calls is their insufficient commitment to defense. The EU countries didn't take his words lightly. The bloc is currently implementing a new mechanism called SAFE that provides countries with long maturity, low-interest loans for military equipment made in Europe.
SAFE is an instrument of €150 billion. And I'm very glad that 19 countries subscribed to SAFE for joint procurement.
16 of those countries have already had their defense investment plans okayed, while 8 countries still haven't submitted theirs. Germany and Sweden said they'd be opting out, as they can reportedly take out cheaper loans on the market. Poland has been granted the biggest loan, totaling nearly €44 billion.
This is a way of financing the modernization of the Polish army, a modernization outlined by Polish soldiers and the general staff.
But the loan needs to go through the full legislation process. After it was approved by the lower house of the Polish parliament nearly 2 weeks ago, the bill headed to the upper house. With a few amendments, it is now set to be passed again by the lower house on Friday. Then it will be put on the Polish president's desk for him to sign.
The commander-in-chief of the armed forces should strive to modernize the Polish army.
President Nawrocki, who is aligned with the opposition Law and Justice Party, has voiced some concerns.
Yes, the Polish army does need as much money as the SAFE loan provides. However, there are doubts regarding the issue of sovereignty.
They claim the money will go to Germany.
Even if we had to pay a little more, it would be incomparably more profitable for Poland and for the personal future and prosperity of Poles and Polish families than what is being proposed to us. That is a Poland under a German heel.
But the government says 80% of the loan will be spent on the domestic market.
20 billion just for the Stalowa Wola steelworks in the Podkarpacia region in Poland. Got that, you thickheads?
The opposition Law and Justice Party, which hopes to return to power in 2027, is afraid the funds from the SAFE programme would be frozen the way the funds from the National Recovery Plan were blocked.
If they by any chance win next election, they might be in a situation in which the programs are approved, but the money is not coming there because they've been considered to be, acting against independence of judiciary and having proven cases of corruption.
According to a survey commissioned by the Polish daily Rzeczpospolita, close to 60% of Poles believe Nawrocki should sign the SAFE bill into law. For TVP World, I'm Piotr Miszczuk.
After Ursula von der Leyen's declaration that the EU will eventually help Ukraine with a €90 billion loan despite Hungary's opposition, the question arises, what is the European Commission's plan? Our defence correspondent Zuzanna Jurek reports from Brussels.
How quickly will the EU be able to make the disbursement of the €90 billion loan for Ukraine happen? Well, that is the key question on everyone's lips today in Brussels, particularly as Hungary continues to maintain its veto on the budget amendment of the EU, which would otherwise serve as a guarantor to raise the necessary money on the capital markets. Additionally, however, we've heard sentiments and declarations from the EU leaders and officials coming out during the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine Ukraine in Kiev on Tuesday, saying that they are determined and resigned to see the money be made available to Ukraine as quickly as possible.
Let me be crystal clear, and the President of the Council also said it. The loan was agreed by 27 heads of state and government in the European Council. They have given their word. This word cannot be broken. So we will deliver on the loan, one way or the other.
Well, I have good news on that. We've just had a coalition of the willing meeting at which both President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and the President of the Commission said that the decision had already been taken at the last European Council, at which the Prime Minister of Hungary had already agreed, so the money will be dispersed.
Now, how exactly will the EU be able to overcome Hungary's veto remains a key question. We know that Hungary has previously obstructed aid deliveries and support deliveries to Ukraine, and as such the European Commission has already taken the next steps forward to begin the discussions on what should happen to make these funds available as quickly as possible. We know that discussions are taking place on both official levels as well as ambassadorial levels, with rumours swirling around that the EU Commission President herself, Ursula von der Leyen, has begun talking to Viktor Orbán about the potential appeasement that he might require in order to lift his veto. Now, we know, however, that a crucial parliamentary election is coming up in Hungary in a few short weeks, in less than 6 weeks, on April 12th, which could see the election of a much more pro-Ukrainian, pro-European party, that is the Tisza party, led by Peter Magyar, who may not be as obstructionist when it comes to the support for Ukraine. Now, however, one key question is whether the EU will choose to play ball with Hungary or whether it will play for time. However, one key question remains, and one crucial detail that remains, and that is steering all of these discussions, is that Ukraine is poised to run out of money needed and necessary for its war efforts in March of this year. And so it is crucial that at least some of these funds, some of the 90 billion euros that have been declared for Ukraine's support, will be made available as quickly as possible. From Brussels for TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
Less than 2 months before parliamentary elections in Hungary, the latest polls show the opposition Tisza party at a comfortable 2-digit lead over the ruling Fidesz. And now, to bolster his chances of a win, Prime Minister Orbán is accelerating his anti-Ukrainian narrative. Our correspondent Andrew Sweeney has this report.
After all supplies via the Druzhba pipeline went dry, Hungary's Prime Minister Viktor Orbán blocked the EU's anti-Russia sanctions and froze diesel and electricity exports to Ukraine. Orbán also accused Ukraine of meddling in Hungary's general elections without providing any evidence. Now he's decided to escalate the rhetoric.
And see that Ukraine is preparing further actions aimed at disrupting the operation of Hungary's energy system. Therefore, I have ordered the strengthening of the protection of critical energy infrastructure. This means that soldiers and the necessary equipment to repel potential attacks will be deployed near key energy facilities. The police will also patrol with increased forces around designated power plants, distribution stations and control centres. In Sobolch, Sotmar, Bereg County, I have ordered a drone flight ban.
This is also a desperate attempt to kind of bring up something, like some arguments why to vote for Fidesz, because if we watch the Fidesz campaign, the Fidesz candidates, it says that it's the secure choice.
Orbán, according to his usual practice, is basing his campaign on fighting with enemies. This has always been his strategy, just a theater for internal politics.
According to a poll commissioned by Median, Tisza leads Fidesz by 11% in the list vote among the general public. Amongst decided voters, that gap widens to 20%. If Tisza also manages to win by 20% in single-member constituencies, it could win up to 155 seats out of 199, giving its leader Peter Magyar the power to rewrite Hungary's constitution. He's already alleged that voter fraud favouring Fidesz has begun.
Fidesz has begun committing election fraud. In one constituency, party members photocopied signature collection sheets and accidentally submitted the copies to the National Election Office. According to the regulations, retaining the personal data of signatories is prohibited.
With just 46 days until the general election on April 12, the stakes and tension are rising. For TVP World, Andrew Sweeney.
Oil supply to Hungary and Slovakia remains completely unthreatened, says Croatia, which provides crude to both countries via the Adria pipeline. Oil delivery disruptions via the Druzhba pipeline running from Russia through Ukraine made Budapest and Bratislava block Europe's aid for Kiev. Maciej Wilowski reports.
Hungary and Slovakia claim they are running out of oil after energy supplies along the Druzhba pipeline were halted last month. But Croatia, which supplies both countries with oil and gas through a separate pipeline linking Budapest with a seaside terminal, has rebuffed that claim.
We have told our friends in Slovakia and Hungary that our capacities are sufficient. Our capacities are here for them. They are ready to provide a service that has been going on for many years.
Croatia is also considering banning seaborne deliveries of Russian crude through its coastal terminal.
I will mention that besides Russia, there are other sources of oil. All of the European Union today exists on non-Russian oil. It is clear to me that they are focused on profit, but that profit then finances the Russian war machine that destroys Ukrainian lives as well as its economy every day.
Hungary and Slovakia remain the sole EU member states to still import large quantities of Russian oil, though Russian natural gas continues to flow by sea to several countries in Western Europe. But there is an alternative. The Adria pipeline, which is operated by Croatia's state oil company Janaf, transports oil from the Adriatic coast to Budapest with an extension to Slovakia. It offers both countries an alternative to the currently disabled Druzhba or Friendship pipeline. Oil flows via Druzhba were halted on January 27th after a section of the pipeline was damaged in an alleged Russian drone strike. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán has accused Ukraine of delaying repairs on the pipeline for political reasons.
The Ukrainians are demanding that Hungary wean itself off Russian energy, give money to Ukraine and support Ukraine's membership in the European Union. Moreover, the Ukrainians are openly threatening the Hungarian government and also personally its leaders.
Hungary's Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó went a step further, denying the Druzhba pipeline was ever struck.
The Druzhba pipeline has not been hit by any Russian attack. The pipeline itself has not been harmed, and currently there is no physical reason and no physical obstacle to restart the deliveries. That's it. It's purely a political decision by Ukraine.
Orbán, together with his Slovakian counterpart Robert Fico, have vowed to retaliate by cutting off emergency power supplies to Ukraine.
Tomorrow, I will visit the state-owned company SEPS and ask it to stop emergency electricity supplies to Ukraine.
Hungary and Slovakia remain steadfast in their energy stance, even with alternatives available. Maciej Wilowski for TVP World.
US President Donald Trump delivered the longest State of the Union address in history last night, concentrating mostly on domestic affairs. He didn't forget about US foreign policy either, claiming that his administration is working hard to end the war in Ukraine. Aaron Damon has more on the situation.
107 minutes.
People are asking me, please, 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 Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore.
Winning the award for the longest presidential State of the Union in modern history.
The men's gold medal Olympic hockey team.
And yet, just 2 brief mentions of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. On the same day, the conflict moved into its 5th year of fighting.
We're working very hard to end the 9th war, the killing and slaughter between Russia and Ukraine, where 25,000 soldiers are dying each and every month. Think of that, 25,000 soldiers are dying a month.
The refusal of US President Donald Trump to single out Moscow. another in a long line of contrasts to his predecessor.
I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin.
That contrast once again coming under the microscope as President Trump appears to play straight into his turn away from Europe and towards Western Hemisphere dominance and spheres of influence.
The truth of the matter is that the current administration under President Trump is more aligned with the Kremlin than it is with Kyiv.
Speaking exclusively to TVP World on the sidelines of the Munich Security Conference earlier this month, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski agreed that there are question marks hanging over Washington's position.
So is there a sense when you speak to Secretary Rubio that Ukraine is a priority?
I'm not sure. I think the US is pivoting in the security sphere to the Far East. I think the US preference is for the war to end, whereas our preference is for it to end the right way.
But Donald Trump did not completely dismiss America's partners or foes, lauding his own NATO defense spending push.
NATO countries are friends and allies. They are. They're our friends and they're our allies. Have just agreed, at my very strong request, to pay 5% of GDP for military defense rather than the 2% which they weren't paying.
And sending a blunt warning to Iran.
One thing is certain, I will never allow the world's #1 sponsor of terror, which they are by far, to have a nuclear weapon. Can't let that happen.
Even so, President Trump's sharp focus remains on the domestic front as troubles brew over public trust and his deadly immigration crackdown.
Trump's approval ratings are currently not great. To compare with, they are in the region of between 36 to 38%, depending on the poll. But they are 14 percentage points less than they were during the last time when he was delivering State of the Union address.
That political split still not enough to stop Donald Trump from claiming a gold medal of his own.
I'm not giving it back. I'm not giving it back.
I'll trade you that for a pen.
As the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz met with Xi Jinping in Beijing on Wednesday, the Chinese leader assured that his country supports a diplomatic solution to the war in Ukraine. This declaration comes amid reports of China investing in a giant arms production plant in Belarus, Putin's closest ally. John Todd reports.
A guard of honour for Friedrich Merz on his first trip to China as German Chancellor, before a sit-down with President Xi Jinping. One of the challenges he faces is Germany's trade deficit with China. It hit nearly 90 billion euros last year, a shift from an historic surplus. Another key challenge is China's support for President Vladimir Putin's war against Ukraine and Beijing's increasing cooperation with Belarus over high-tech arms production. A state-owned Chinese defense company is reportedly sharing its high-tech know-how as part of a deal to develop a giant arms plant in Belarus with a local partner. The Nikkei Asia news site reports mass production of munitions for Russia's use in Ukraine is slated to begin later this year. Ivana Kraskova, the China team lead at the Association for International Affairs in Prague, told TVP World's On the Record that the arms plant was just one example of Beijing's extensive backing for Moscow, and that cooperation would only stop if Europe acts.
This has been going on for quite some time, and this is probably not going to stop because we are, as Europeans, not really putting our hearts and minds into stopping this alliance, into going after the Chinese companies, sanctioning quite heavily, and so on.
Ukraine's ambassador to Poland described China's involvement in Belarus.
It's unbelievably strong influence because of the strong economic ties, because of the influence on political dimension, and also the problem is that China have their own interests.
It comes as Poland's internal security agency arrested 4 Belarusians and 2 Poles for trying to smuggle equipment essential for the production of combat drones to Russia. Chancellor Merz is the latest European leader to recently visit Beijing. Analysts say, though, Europe needs to speak with one voice and use financial pressure to pursue its goals.
Europe needs to leverage the main strength it has, and this is the European single market, which is extremely important for China. Access to this market is increasingly important because of the weakness of the Chinese economy.
Merz's mission, a reset with Beijing. He has 2 more days to get that message across. John Todd for TVP World.
Future of the SAFE program in Poland hanging in the balance. Viktor Orbán accelerating his anti-Ukrainian narrative, and China investing in the Kremlin's war machine. Well, to talk about the latest events in our region and more, we're joined by Wojciech Przybylski, editor-in-chief of Visegrad Inside. Good evening.
Good evening.
However, we'll start with the US and Donald Trump's address, State of the Union address. Now, what conclusions should we draw from this yesterday's speech for our region and for Europe?
Not much. It was more of a speech aimed at, let's say, tuning down on aggressive posture in the US ahead of the midterms that are not expected to go very well at the current polling for the Republican Party. Trump primarily wanted to soothe the tensions related to number of incidents, including deaths of protesters in Minneapolis, the tensions around ICE, probably also these tensions related to international affairs that were not even mentioned. He was instead talking of hockey.
Well, some were mentioned, like Iran and Ukraine, very briefly. Now, we know that although Ukraine was mentioned indeed very briefly yesterday, Donald Trump held a phone call with his Ukrainian counterpart today ahead of tomorrow's round of negotiations between the US and Ukraine concerning the end of the war. Now, is this a good sign for Ukraine or quite the opposite?
It's always good to keep the United States engaged in the effort to have peace in Ukraine. On the other hand, these are not the two parties that are at war with each other. So naturally, we're missing an interlocutor at the meeting.
Precisely. Now, Sweden will not participate in the Safe Loan Scheme. Well, first of all, let's talk about Sweden. Does it change anything for Europe's security overall?
They're taking a 30 billion loan to fund their defense program, and their reserves and their coffers are quite big.
Don't need the SAFE program. Poland, however, the clock is ticking for Poland. Do you think that President Karol Nawrocki will finally make up his mind and veto or not the bill?
Yeah, well, definitely he's between a rock and a hard place. The rock being the public opinion in Poland that generally supports SAFE. We know from opinion polling this morning that about 60% of people want him to sign the bill that allows the disbursement of the SAFE money under the new law, so that we maximize the potential of the money spent on Polish defense. At the same time, he's the party that supported him for in the candidacy for the presidency of Poland, Law and Justice, basically demands that he derails any success of the government, and that would be a major success for the government of Donald Tusk to have the SAFE program pass through the parliament and installed in the Polish system of public finances. Even as the Senate has been passing some of the adaptations to the law according to, in compromise, but in a good compromise, and amending and improving the law in the process of the legislative process. That was it looks like Mr. Nawrocki wanted these changes to be introduced. We can't be sure of the result, but I think it's altogether very good for the Polish public debate to put it on the table and see who is really for building Polish defense and Yeah, and being serious about the project.
As we're discussing major multi-billion loans, now I'd like to ask you about the 90 billion euro loan for Ukraine. Ursula von der Leyen claims that Kiev will eventually receive the money. How will she do it?
Well, she may try to persuade Viktor Orbán before elections. Viktor Orbán might be persuaded before even elections take place when Ukraine accelerates repair of Druzhba pipeline that allows the crude oil exports from Russia to Hungary. So there is an element of hard conditionality in the closed doors discussion, I'm sure. On the other hand, you can be sure that there will be a change because things are going to change in Budapest after elections, after 12th of April.
Are you so sure? I know that the lead is very comfortable for Tisza party now. It's more than 10, definitely, right?
Today's polling shows, median and independent agencies shows over 20% of lead among the decided voters. So that's quite substantive. But even if that does not lead, it doesn't translate to the number of MEPs that would have such an advantage in a change in the structure of power in Hungary. Hungarian position is weakened. Mr. Orbán's position in Hungary is weakened, but also Hungarian position of being in opposition to everything else is being weakened by their economic position, by the empty coffers. Again, the finances of Budapest are, I wouldn't say in dire straits, but it's a very difficult situation, and their public debt is rising. People do not see the benefits of the policies introduced by Viktor Orbán's government. So elements of moderations are coming one way or another.
I see. Now Viktor Orbán is sending his troops to protect the country's energy grid. Is it a smart move? Or, will it win him some voices or not?
Well, I hope he does not call what he doesn't wish for. He's teasing with the mightiest army in Europe and calling on his neighbor that he will block funds and suggest that the neighbor is attacking him, which is not true, might eventually turn out to be true, and that will not spell good fortune for the small country of Hungary.
Right, now Slovakia and Hungary both claim that they are undergoing some major difficulties because of oil deliveries disruptions via the Druzhba pipeline, while Croatia claims that's not the case. So in the end, is it all about just, supporting Vladimir Putin's war budget?
No, it's about supporting people who draw money from the Russian oil deliveries. Russian crude oil, the Ural oil, is of different composition and is and the refineries, primarily in Hungary but also in Slovakia, have been prepared to receive that kind of oil. But they have been also adapting, and they do not need to rely on Russian oil. But the technology once changed from Russian dependency to the dominant type of oil, which is Brent oil, that could flow into both Slovak and Hungarian refineries, would change the geopolitics forever, because you cannot reverse the process. In a nutshell, that means they have one and only moment, and Russians know it. So I'm sure there's serious money behind to make sure that Slovakia or Hungary at least delay the inevitable as long as they can.
Now, one last question: what do you make of the? What do you think of the reports that China is investing big money in a major arms production plant in Belarus?
Well, China has been present in Belarus for quite some time. In the airport of Minsk, where I used to land before the full-scale invasion a few times, you have Chinese signs and Chinese language all around. It's a major investment of the country to build relations with China and invite China at our doorstep.
Let me put it differently. Is China investing in prolonging the war in Ukraine?
Well, China is Russia's ally, and it has been supporting Russia from day one. It has actually given permission to attack Ukraine, but only after the Olympics in 2022.
Rightly. So, Wojciech Przybylski, editor-in-chief of Visegrad Inside, was our guest this evening. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching, but don't go away, as Adam Jasa is on the record with Ivana Karaskova on China-Europe relations is coming up next.